Hi everyone, in this presentation we are going to look at the CSS panel, and what I have open is I'm in Dreamweaver. I've got split view mode. I just have a simple HTML page that only has one box on it. It is connected to a styles page, and if I click on files you can actually see that I have in fact defined my site in Dreamweaver, and I am going to a specific folder that right now only has one HTML page and one CSS page. So again, it's very important that you define the site, which we talked about way back in week 1. So I have on box 1 some CSS styles, and you can see them in the CSS page. Now I wanted to show you, some of you have the live view or live code buttons up at the top of the window here. But if you're on the same version as I am, which is I believe CC 2014, you won't have that. So what you can do is you can go to view and then toggle live view, and it will show you just the live view of what you have on your screen. So now you can see my box and with all of the parameters attached to it from the CSS. You can also see the name of it and kind of where it is. So it's just a little bit different. And I can toggle back and view it without this information. And I can always go in here and preview in the different browsers. Notice how I have all 4 browsers installed. That is extremely useful. You would want to have all of the browsers, as many as you possibly can have installed, so that you can view your website on all the different browsers and see what's actually happening with it. Alright, but what I really wanted to show you is the CSS Designer palette, which is this palette here. Now if you have more than one CSS page attached to your HTML, they will all be listed here. You can also use the CSS Designer palette to link to a CSS page by clicking that plus button. You can create a new CSS or you can attach to an existing. Now I have, here is the selectors for the box CSS, which just kind of shows me all of the different class tags or ID tags that I would have on this CSS page. And I only have the one. And then the properties shows me, visually it shows me all the different properties and what it looks like, which is actually a little bit more helpful in these later versions of Dreamweaver than the earlier. Now this palette's been around for a while, but in the earlier versions of the palette, everything is listed with just a long list of things. I believe it was version CC, where they first started to have this visual showing of all the different elements. And you can change so much. So I can change from pixels to points and all kinds of things. And I can also change how rounded my corners are. So let's say I want to go to 20 pixels instead of 10. Notice how they all change because they're all connected by this link. Now I can unlink that and I can just simply change to. Let's say I want it to be 40 on the bottom and 20 on the top. I don't know why I would do that, but let's say I do want to do that. Sometimes people have different designs. Well, there you can see that 2 of my corners are in fact 40. And then the other 2 are 20. So you can custom change things. My gradient is in here as well, and I can go in and I can change my gradient however I want. This is a nice little gradient palette for Dreamweaver. The box shadow, it's already on there. I can click the more button and add more elements. I can add a property value. I'm not really gonna change or add anything to this. I also have some options up here. I can click on layout, I can click on the border information, I can click on the gradient or background information, and then more, so that kind of helps me jump to those areas or those sections. I could change the height and width. I can change how the position is. It's got the drop down for the different types that I'm available to choose, because I can choose static, absolute, fixed, and relative. Let's say I want to add, a float. So I'm typing in float down here, we're in the more button or more box, and I'm going to choose float. And then in the property value, I'm going to choose, you can have left, right, and clear, I believe. So I'm going to do float left. I want all my boxes to be on the left side. So now I have float left for my box 1. So I could use that. You're not supposed to use the floats with the absolute positioning. Notice how underneath my position I have the top, right, and bottom are auto, but I have a top with 316 pixels and a left of 34 pixels. Right now, the way that my CSS is, it's overriding the float. Let's say I do 40 pixels, 40 from the top. Now it's moved up closer to the top versus way far down. Well, I guess 300 pixels isn't way far down, but... and then I could also delete this, and so it's just got the float left on it. Now it's going to read the float left. And if I added another one, let's say I copy this and I paste it so that I have two. Notice how they're floating left. Well, I want to add a margin to this. So I'm going to scroll down, and in my properties, I'm going to add a margin right, and I want, oops, it's undefined. I want 25 pixels. So that'll move over 25 pixels, and if I copy and paste another one, I'll have 3. So now I have 3, and they're all the same width apart. And that's what you want to do. You want to make sure that you have a right margin on there so that they're the same exact width apart. So this is how I would set up my CSS and HTML. I would actually use the float left command, and I would probably put these 3 boxes in a container box or in a section, since we're using CSS5. So I would just kind of, now later I would define what section means, but I would definitely put all 3 of these in its own container box or in its own section, and then I would most likely center this using the information in section. Alright, so that's it for the CSS Designer. It's actually a very helpful panel, and they've done some really beautiful things to it. To be honest, I don't use it as much as I wish I would, and the reason why I say that is because I'm just not used to it. I hand code all my CSS, or I copy and paste it from Photoshop, but even if I copy and paste it, I still go in and I hand code and hand change things. So you have the most control when you do the hand coding and the hand changing, which is really kind of what I want to do. I still have this top and left on here, and I don't want those because they're just kind of taking up space. So I'm going to delete that out of there. So see, it's always best to make sure that you look at the CSS and make sure that everything is doing what you want it to do.